John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on February the 13th in the year of our Lord 2026. Happy Valentine's Day Eve. All right, and I have some great information for you tonight, so let's just go ahead and get into this. Let me click over here to my Murtech on Rumble channel. This is the video we're going over tonight, episode 1837. Let's jump into this, close out the live chat, slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. We have information from Dan Bongino, Devory Darkins, Dr. Steve Turley, and Wendy Bell Radio. But before we get into that, let me give some shout outs here to KTKRO, just started following my channel. GP Wolco01, just started following my channel. K Goodman89, just started following my channel. And Lortai Keck just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I apologize if I mispronounced your handle, but I hope you're tuned in and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1836. Jeanette J66 and 1967 C2 Corvette commented on my daily news wrap-up. And Uncloudy commented on my episode 1836. Debbie BS commented on my extra 619A, 619B, and 619C. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments and reposting my video. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. There you go. And if you could give me a thumbs up, too, I would appreciate that so much. All right, Dan Bongino, Obama's Fixer, is back in the news, episode 2452. So let's check this out and see what he has to say about that.
Wendy, something, a really great law enforcement commentator. I'm not sure if we've ever met. Again, I don't know, but he's done some great work on Fox addressing exactly this in this cut. I need you to see. Check this out.
How do you think this is working with the FBI and sheriff, the coordination, the leadership? How is it viewed inside from your contacts?
No, that's a great question, because this is something that has concerned me from the very beginning. Of course, following this case from the outset, beginning when the sheriff did give his press conferences, the way he gave these press conferences was startling. It was unprofessional. He seemed to be out of his depth, quite honestly. He gave information and he walked back information and he said this, he said that. Clearly, under his leadership, the scene was not secured properly. We're now understanding that the FBI wasn't called in until several days later, that the scene itself was compromised. This is bad leadership.
You know, I get it. There's always the cliched Monday morning quarterbacking, all of us. Listen, it happened to me, fair enough. But we all have the right to speak out. I'm not telling you every decision I made was absolutely peerless. I told you I had no regrets on my first show. Why? Not because I didn't make mistakes, but because I learned from them. And I wouldn't be a better person if I didn't make mistakes and learn from them. Therefore, I wouldn't change them because I didn't make the mistake again. But I think we have to be honest here. It's time for some cooperation. Obviously, the case has not gone swimmingly because of this lack of coordination, because we still haven't found the person. Maybe it's time to just put egos aside and do the right thing. By the way, Randy Sutton, again, I don't know, but he was not an FBI agent. He's got no dog in the fight. He's not there to protect the reputation of the FBI. If you screw up, we screw up. No time for games, man. Do the right thing. All right, moving on. So again, yeah, the Epstein files are out there. Elated that they are, because now you can see what everyone else saw. President Trump signed this piece of legislation. It's out there. Again, did everything go swimmingly with this? No, folks. If you're waiting for me to sit here and tell you all the time, everything was great all the time. My whole first show, I've now covered this now 3 times as the news breaks on it, and you see some of the stuff that we saw that's out there. I covered in the first show, or was it the first or maybe the second show? I'm not sure, but last week, you can go look. I covered a tweet by the great Mike Davis, an amazing attorney, where he covered what the problems were initially, grand jury material, other things like that, CSAM type material that was there that, it's not even, you're not going to put that out there. However, there were some problems. That's what led to a lot of these debates. Now that it's out there, I'm elated because you can see everything. You deserve to see everything at this point. The case has national attention because it's a really tragic, disgusting, horrific case that rightfully so has encompassed the American public's mind for a long time, me included. But it's weird how the liberal media people, after President Trump signed the bill, the legislation, that's just a fact. How we got there, you can argue about all day. You can. But all they wanted was accountability. And then all of a sudden, I got tons of tweets about this in text last night. One of them from a friend said, Dan, you were right again. Look who's back. Guy, you remember the fixer? Guy knew right away. I said, Guy, title this thing The Fixer. He knew right away. Remember Obama's fixer, his lawyer in the White House, one of them, Catherine Rumler? Catherine Rumler was a player in just about every Obama administration scandal. I don't have time for it today, but if you go back and just put it in the search engines, you'll see some of the Rumble shows in the past. We covered this at length. Benghazi, the IRS scandal, the Secret Service scandal. Rumler's in the middle of all of it. All of it. So we used to call her the fixer, Catherine Rumler. Now, again, folks, everybody has the constitutional right to speak out and defend themselves. I'm just telling you, like, where is the demands for accountability from Obama's team? Obama, I haven't heard say much about this at all. What am I getting at? Here's Alex Berzowitz, who's a great guy, put out a tweet on this. Hey, Wall Street Journal, here's a better headline for you. Obama's close friend and former White House counsel, Catherine Rumler, is out at Goldman Sachs after her deep connection to Jeffrey Epstein was exposed by documents released by the Trump administration. No wonder Biden and Kamala didn't make an effort to release these files when they were in power. The Journal and others, why aren't you mentioning that this was a key figure in the Obama administration? You're just mentioning it was Goldman's top lawyer? You don't think that's important? It seems all these liberal media outlets, you know, when they speculated about information about Donald Trump that turned out to all be, bullshit, and they were all over that. I talked about it 3 times, only been on the air 2 weeks. You guys going to be honest about this stuff or not? And by the way, I cite the Wall Street Journal a lot. I like the outlet. I think they do some good work. But, I found it kind of weird a couple of weeks ago when President Trump was on the podcast. Instead of properly citing the work, they wrote this piece after we cite their work all the time. And they were like, he appeared on a podcast. You can see what it is. You want accountability? At least speak honestly about these Democrats involved in these files. Reid Hoffman, Clinton. How about that shit? Everything's a bullshit attack on the Trump administration as if there was never any effort at all. That's bullshit. And again, for the 1,000th time, if you're waiting for me here to be like, oh, look, we're all here. Listen, Fokker, check me out here. Eyeballs. Listen to me. Are you zooming in for effect? Thank you, Guy. I did not ask them to do that, but now they're just doing it. Seriously. There are no fucking heroes in this story. You understand? There are no heroes in this story. Mistakes are made all the time. We're fallible people. All you can do is try to correct them and explain them. And again, don't over-explain them. Just explain what you did and why. There are people who are going to disapprove you. That's okay. It's okay. It's never comfortable for the person who's disapproved of. However, it's okay. And it's far better than the alternative, which is suppressing people's voices. But there are no heroes in any of these stories. There's just the truth. And now you can see it for yourself. But these liberal media people are full of shit. All right, getting to some good news. This just cracked this morning. I've got a lot to get to, a ton. Folks, I got Congressman Brandon Gill coming on later. This guy's a real rock star, very intelligent guy coming on at 11:30. You're not going to want to miss that. He is just a fantastic representative out of Texas 26. But on the good news front, again, I'm usually good at this, licking the finger and seeing where the political winds are going. I can't for the life of me understand why the doom and gloom class on our side, and they're there. You can deny it all you want. Oh, stop calling us. You're there. I'm not telling you. I just went over this whole thing saying how accountability matters, has to matter. We have to stick to results and facts. But when the facts come out, what I don't understand about the doom and gloom class, I get why the liberal media does it, is why they just ignore those facts. They don't even talk about it. Why does the Trump administration not get credit for this unbelievable economic show they're putting on right now? I mean, this is incredible. 4 and 5% GDP growth. Put that in perspective. Obama was in office 8 years, folks. Think about this. Everyone, zoom in. Obama was in office 8 years. So he zooms in. He never reached 3% GDP growth, ever. What we produce. Trump is on pace now for potentially 2 straight quarters to surpass 4. That is huge. This is an amazing story. Not only that, he inherited the worst inflation crisis since Jimmy freaking Carter from Sleepy Joe Spaghetti Brains. And now it appears even the inflation crisis has been stemmed temporarily. I'm not telling you this is a long-term, medium-term fix, but at least for now, the numbers are good. Right before we came on the air this morning live, this popped about the inflation number coming in lower. Yes, lower than expected. Okay, this is accountability too, correct? It's a result. It's an actual number. Check this out.
And an upside surprise here, or a downside surprise, year over year at 2.4, had been expected at 2.5%. And I think one of the reasons is this rent of owner's equivalent rent coming in at a relatively low 0.2%. Energy down 1.5%, gasoline down 3.2%, new vehicle sales up 0.2. I am looking for the core number, CPI year over year 2.4, export energy. That came in at consensus plus 2.5%. And real earnings were pretty good, up 0.5% after declining in the prior month. So this looks like a good CPI number.
Okay. I'm just using logic and reason. If we're going to be transactional spreadsheets people and vote on results for accountability purposes, shouldn't we at least factor in the good stuff too? This is amazing. This is an incredible number, lower than expected. It's not the end of the fight. There's certainly a debt problem in this country that's still out of control, but this is a good thing. Notice how I give both sides? I'm proud of this freaking show. I love this show. We're never going to bullshit you. Do we have a massive debt problem? Yes. Is it a Republican administration, Congress, and the Senate, although we got a filibuster problem? It is. We have a spending problem. However, given those constraints, here's the negative, here's the positive. The GDP numbers are incredible. Thank you, Guy. I didn't even ask them to put this in the show. Look at the inflation numbers. Trump 45, 2%. Biden 4.95. Trump 2.35, back down. Those are just the numbers, man. I mean, if there's a report card that matters, this stuff has to matter. These are like grades. The grade for me on the economy so far is a freaking A minus. And the only reason I say minus is because I know there's more coming next year too. Folks, getting back to what I discussed in the middle of the show, I don't mean to jump around, but that happened just before we came on the air, and I want to make sure we have a huge audience that comes in the beginning. I didn't want to miss it. This is good news, good news, good news, good news. Get the price inflation under control. I was discussing the Guthrie case in terms of cooperation and the larger story here about federal versus state, local, territorial, we call them SLTTs. It's just easier to say it that way, law enforcement officials. It is really, really important to instill a sense of cooperation. We have an FBI for a reason. It's to support national crime efforts, counterintelligence, and counterterror. That's what they're there for. We made sure we were there to ensure a culture of accommodation. I promise you. You notice you've never seen any leaks about that. For as much as these leaking scumbags inside there, and a lot of folks did some amazing work, and I appreciate that. However, there were scumbags on the inside leaking like, Dan came in this morning and drank a cup of decaf coffee or whatever. It was ridiculous. You couldn't say shit because I would say, like, what is this? A bunch of like gossiping teenage girls? This freaking Mean Girls? Get a freaking hold of yourself. One of the things you never saw leak ever, because it would never happen, was us big dog in local law enforcement. But politicians and local law enforcement leaders can't seem to do the same thing. So if we can go in there, Cash and I, and say, hey, guys, we got to work with local law enforcement, fix this crime problem nationwide. What I don't understand and can't get my arms around is why can't politicians on a bipartisan basis get their heads out of their asses and the Democrats dump the defund the police shit and just get back to a, hey, we're going to silo that off. Excuse me. We're going to silo that off, and we are going to get together, sit at a table, sing Kumbaya, roast marshmallows, and figure out a way to crush violent crime, counterterrorism, and figure out the espionage situation in the United States. They can't do it. Local law enforcement leaders. I'm not talking about the guys working the cases too. You're seeing it out there in Pima County. Politicians bullshitting people about what's happening at the border efforts. Here's a perfect example, textbook of what I mean. Here's this Representative Lou Correa on CNN. You would think control of our border would be a bipartisan net positive, correct? We don't want people coming in the country illegally. You're like, Dan, I get it, but I know, I understand. But it's one thing to lie about President Trump's massive success on the border. Massive. You want a grade on that? A++++++++. No one's ever done what he did. 20 million people in the country illegally, down to 0 illegal migrants admitted. 0, like a freaking goose egg. 0. You've never seen anything like it. So you get credit? No. You get representatives like this who go and say, he gets the number exactly backwards. Listen to what he says about, hey, 70% of these illegals, he gets the number backwards. 70% have a pending criminal charge or have been convicted of a criminal charge. He's got it completely backwards. But did he do it on purpose, or is he just dumb? Who knows? Listen to yourself.
I'd like to see ICE continue targeted enforcement of those who are here illegally with criminal records. Do you support that?
Look, what I support is what the president promised the American public. He was supposed to go after the worst of the worst criminals. That is not what he's doing. 70% of the people they've deported don't even have a traffic ticket. Most of the individuals out there that are picking them up are essentially hardworking, undocumented taxpayers.
He gets the number completely backwards. Is he dumb or is he a liar? 70% of the people who have been deported have a pending criminal charge, have been convicted of a criminal charge, or are in the legal process for some criminal activity. He gets the number totally backwards. This is why we have this bifurcated political environment where, and I'm going to address this with this Apple News story coming up in just a little bit here, how Apple News there were 0 conservative outlets or close to 0 cited in the Apple News. People use Apple News every day. Why do we live in basically 2 separate, completely different worlds, the red world and the blue world? And there's no intersection anymore. There used to be down ballot voting. People would vote for a Democrat senator or a Republican congressman. Almost never happens anymore. Why? Because you've got a lying media that never, ever corrects these people. I just got done with the first 25 minutes of the show. And thank you for the 60+ thousand people here so far in our live chat. Appreciate it. I just got done telling you good, bad, here's what did wrong, here's what did right. I'm glad we learned from it. You would think these CNN folks would be like, Representative Correa, you got the number exactly backwards. Listen, I don't care if they say it or not. Well, I don't agree with the President Trump's policies, they may say, but that number's not accurate. They can't do it. Here's Tricia McLaughlin doing a great job at DHS correcting misinformation. Thanks, Guy. She says drug trafficking, distribution of child porn, burglary, fraud, DUIs, embezzlement, solicitation of a minor, human smuggling. They're all categorized as, quote, nonviolent crime. She was, like we said, 70% of those illegal aliens arrested under President Trump and Secretary Noem have pending criminal charges or prior convictions. The dude has the number completely backwards. That's why we have red news, blue news, and there's no intersection at all. None.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, folks, and I will include this in my daily news wrap-up. So let's jump over here, and let me show you that this video does come from the Dan Bongino Show. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, jumping back here. Let's see what else we have here. And folks, give me a chat. Let me know who's out there. Okay. Let me, is anybody watching? Hello? Hello? Bueller? Okay. Devory Darkins. Democrats' latest lie to 70 million women backfires in major blow. Sounds like a wiener to me. Let's see what it's all
So
about.
Democrats are on to their next lie to the American people, and we're talking about the SAVE Act, which requires individuals to confirm they are a citizen by providing documentation at the time of registering to vote. According to Democrats, this essentially would prevent women who get married from voting. And here is the video they're using to sell that lie.
Republicans are trying to make it harder for you to vote. Let me tell you how. The Save America Act would require your passport or your birth certificate to match your current name in order to be able to vote. If y'all got married and changed your name, your birth certificate would not match your current name. Nearly 69 million women in America have a birth certificate that does not match their current name, and therefore 69 million American women would no longer be eligible to vote.
So I told you it was a lie. Allow me to show you why it's a lie using 3 scenarios. Scenario number 1, which is essentially what's happening today. A woman gets married. She doesn't change her legal name. That means she doesn't have to do anything extra to register to vote. She just provides the information she already has, whether that is her birth certificate or passport. That works. Scenario number 2, a woman gets married, changes her name, updates her driver's license. Now there's a mismatch with her birth certificate, correct? So what would she need to do to bridge those documents? I don't know. It's something called a marriage certificate, which she should have. Isn't difficult to get, by the way. And it's something you would need if you were going to apply for a passport, get a real ID, or update your social security records. Scenario number 3, which is probably the worst position to be in, and this actually has nothing to do with voting. It's just kind of the implied responsibilities as an adult. A woman has no passport, no birth certificate, but she gets married anyway. She would definitely need to go get a copy of her birth certificate. She definitely need to go get a copy of or at least apply for a passport. I mean, she'd have to do the normal things anybody would do, even if she wasn't getting married. And that's why Democrats are distracting people with this lie, because they're really trying to protect illegal aliens from voting in our election.
These guys say that the Save America Act is needed to prevent undocumented immigrants from voting, but y'all already know that that is not a thing. What this really is, it's a vote suppression bill to keep lawfully voting American citizens from being able to exercise their foundational right to vote.
Well, that thing that she says doesn't happen, it actually happens every week by now. We continue to get stories about it. The Washington Times reported just recently, illegal immigrant convicted of voting, stealing disability, and food stamp benefits. But more importantly, the House passed the SAVE Act yesterday at a vote of 218 to 213. We know 83% of Americans support it, but will the Senate actually push this through? And it all falls on Leader John Thune. And here is Speaker Johnson's message the Senate regarding this.
Will Senate Democrats continue to cater to their extreme left-wing base, or are they going to finally join the overwhelming majority of Americans on this common sense reform? But I'll tell you this, once again, Republicans have demonstrated that we are the party of common sense. We are the party that's delivering exactly what the American people sent us here to do, and we will continue that.
All right, now the bigger picture here is it's definitely common sense. The American people overwhelmingly support this. The House of Representatives have passed this previously before. We're at deja vu at this point, where one chamber passes it, the other one doesn't. So we'll see if they're able to get it through in the end, that is in the Senate. But here's the other thing. Which one is more ridiculous to you? The fact that Speaker Johnson has to get in front of a camera and explain how this makes sense, or the fact that leftists are continuing to try to explain to the American people how this disenfranchises people of color?
What voting rights is he taking away from black voters?
Oh, if we look at
the SAVE Act?
The SAVE Act, that's exactly what we're talking about. That is actually going to continue to disenfranchise overwhelmingly a lot of people of color. There are so many civil rights organizations that have run the data. If we look at the way that it is going to disenfranchise black voters, it's the same reason why Chuck Schumer called it Jim Crow 2.0.
So
this is the same president. If we want to continue...
You haven't said how yet.
I am talking about it. It's the way that you're putting new poll taxes on this when you're making people have...
I mean, at this point, they're literally grasping for straws. It's because it's Donald Trump. It's the Republicans, and they have to be contrarians on this particular issue. The best way to be contrarians in politics today is to chalk it up to racism, bigotry, and oppression. It's exactly the playbook they're using. Use it on the Black community for decades on end, and now they're trying to use it on the American people. But again, all we have to do if we want to exercise critical thinking skills is start asking questions like how and give me an examples. And when you do that, this is usually what happens.
Does it concern you that you're making all these claims? You've yet to lay out how it's hurting anyone, but 76% of Black voters think we should show an ID to vote. 80% of Hispanic voters, 83% of the American people. Are you saying that Black voters
the
are
SAVE
too
Act
dumb to
isn't
know
just,
what's good for them? I mean,
the
it
SAVE Act
sounds
isn't
pretty,
just about
it sounds pretty condescending
just
to me.
The SAVE Act is
Get
not
three-quarters
just
of Black
about
voters
IDs.
That's not
who want
right.
voter IDs.
Just to be clear, the SAVE Act is not
putting words
just
in my
about
mouth.
IDs. The SAVE Act is about
So what?
proof of citizenship.
So what?
So it doesn't. I actually.
It also makes it very hard for
we talked
married
about this.
women who
I
changed
was
their
just gonna
last
say.
name.
And there it is. Their argument goes off the rails. They need saving. She had to run interference because when you deliver the truth to them, it makes them stop. And that's when they glitch out because all we're really talking about is common sense things. There used to be a saying in the military, trust, but verify. Trust that you're an American citizen when you tell me, but I need to verify you are an American citizen. So show me. I think that's not too much to ask for, especially because voting is not just a right, in my opinion. It's actually a privilege if we really think about it, which is why illegal aliens and anybody else who can't prove that they're a citizen of this country has no business voting in our election.
United States citizens should be the people choosing our elected leaders, not illegal immigrants. Now, look, I'm not a drinker. Everybody knows that. But I know if I go to Weigel's in Knoxville, Tennessee, down on the corner of Emory Road and Tazewell Pike, and if I go in there to buy a six-pack or a can of Skull or a scratch-off, I gotta produce an ID. When you purchase a firearm, when you board a plane, when you open a bank account, if I put $100 in the bank and then right then and ask for 20 of it back, guess what? I gotta show a dadgum ID. Why can't you vote for an elected official without one, Mr. Speaker?
Well, it's because it's racism, bigotry, oppression. And when those terms don't work anymore, you know what they do? They start talking about single mothers who are working and can't afford to actually go get a birth certificate. They start pulling on your heartstrings and trying to find sob stories to argue their point. Here's an example of that.
This puts up to 70 million women at risk of disenfranchisement. 70 million. That's 1 in 4 voters in this country. And the burden will fall hardest on working mothers, caregivers, those juggling jobs and families who have barely a moment to spare. It's outrageous that in the year 2025, more than a century after the 19th Amendment was ratified, we still have to defend a woman's right to vote.
So every year around this time, many seniors, 65 years or older, are surprised to learn that their Medicare plan no longer covers the doctors they've been seeing. Then they talk about how confusing Medicare is and how the system is poorly designed by the government, because you know you can't trust them, and corrupt because of the insurance company. So what should you do if that is you? Call my friends at Chapter.
All right, he's going into a commercial here, so let me skip past that.
Just to make sure she's consistent, this is the question I'd have for her. What about a woman's right to choose when it comes to vaccines for her children, even her own body? I remember there for a minute, people were fired, kicked out of the military, okay, disenfranchised for not taking the vaccine or getting their children to take a vaccine. You see, when it comes to the right to choose, it only matters when it suits their narratives.
Republicans failed to show up for their mothers, their daughters, their wives, and every woman in their life. But we are going to keep showing up, and we're just getting started. We're not going to stop until we build a government where working mothers and families can also thrive.
Well, I suppose that's what you guys attempted to do under the Biden administration. We see how that actually turned out, whether it was record inflation, open borders, dangerous streets, poor education, lack of resources, budget deficits. I mean, you name it, the Democrats have their name behind it. There's no question about it. They claim they're all about affordability, but what they're really about is protecting illegal aliens at this point in time, because that's all they talk about. Now, while they're doing that, here's what Republicans are talking about.
My colleagues are spending a lot of time lecturing the American people on how this is going to require you to show your papers. But last time I checked, During COVID, they demanded that if you simply wanted to go to a funeral, be with your loved ones while they were dying, or get married, you had to show your papers. In fact, in New York City, they were literally asking you for your COVID passport. Yet the Save America Act, a common sense piece of legislation that requires two things, voter ID plus proof of citizenship, is being labeled by people in the Senate and people in this very chamber as Jim Crow era laws. Well, let me remind the American people of history. It was the Democrat Party that championed the Jim Crow era laws. And this is the farthest thing from it. In fact, if you're doing that, you're insulting over 70% of your voters, Democrats, who believe that voter ID is the best way to secure an election. Then we have the argument that you have from Blue and On saying that Trump is trying to steal the election and Orange Man bad, and this is somehow going to fix the midterms. But the fact is that if we are going to play that game, then you would want voter ID and you would want to secure the elections.
So for a party who claims they want women and families and Americans to thrive, why do they spend so much time fear-mongering them? Do you notice the pattern? They switch from one issue to the next, screaming Armageddon, and here's just the latest one yet. Now, the good news here is not all Democrats are crazy, and now the good news is not all Democrats are batshit crazy. A small percentage of them still has some shred of common sense, especially regarding voter ID. And here's one of them, Senator John Fetterman, when he said this on Sunday.
And now me, as a Democrat, I do not believe that it's unreasonable or to show ID just to vote. And I remind everybody that less than a year ago in Wisconsin, they added that to the Constitution by a 63%, passing, to put that in the Constitution that you have to show ID to vote.
You see, Democrats, it's not that hard to exercise a little bit of common sense, especially on this particular issue where 71% of your voters support voter ID. But according to CNN Abby Phillips, people who can get a real ID, I guess they can't get the proper documentation to register to vote in our elections, even though the documentation is the same.
Most Americans don't have a passport. Many Americans don't have access to their birth certificate. Many women, a majority of women who change their names for marriage have to provide additional proof that they've changed their legal names in order to register to vote.
I have heard Democrats
Scott,
make these same
why don't you actually
arguments.
respond to the substance of what I'm saying?
I am. And
as
the substance
opposed
is
to
this.
making
You're
this about
saying-
something that it's not.
You're saying,
it's not just
you're
about
saying
voter ID.
married
It's
women,
also about
black
who has
voters,
access
and rural people are too stupid to figure out how to register to
me?
vote.
No, that's not.
that is
That's
not what
Democrats have been
she
making
said.
this
That is
argument all
so
along.
offensive.
Crazy.
That
That's
is
not
so
what she
offensive.
said.
Let me
Are you
let
saying
me offer
they
the
can't
proof.
figure out how
Let
to
me
vote?
offer the
Are you
proof.
saying they can't
This
figure
is
out how
the
to vote?
exact
I'm
same
just saying it is
argument.
a fact that a majority of Americans do not have passports.
So as you can see there's no talking to these people, right? They just talk over you. They really don't want to have a thorough discussion. But I will say this, Abby. Let's say you're right. Most Americans do not have a passport. So should we prevent them from traveling? Oh, that's right. We do that already. If you don't have a passport, you can't just fly to another country. But it's their right to travel, right? You see, it just doesn't make sense, okay? At the end of the day, whether you're going to get a real ID or you're going to get proper insurance in your life or you're going to travel overseas or you're going to buy a piece of property, it doesn't matter. Every step of the way, you got to verify you are who you say you are. That's not disenfranchising people. That's verifying people are who they say they are. Why don't you guys give me your thoughts about all of this in the comment section below? The House of Representatives passed the SAVE Act. It's in the Senate currently right now. It does require 60 votes unless Leader Thune invokes the filibuster and gets it to a majority, which would only need 51 votes. But if he does that, it's a risky thing. But you give me your thoughts about whether or not you believe this is actually going to pass. And do you believe it's voter suppression? And do you believe this disenfranchises 70 million of American women? Give me your thoughts and everything you got in the comment section below.
All right. Great information here. Let me show you that this video does come from Devory Darkins on his YouTube channel. Subscribe to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and see what Dr. Steve Turley says about woke liberals humiliated as trans shooter kills 10 in Canada. Okay, well, let's see what that's all about.
Once again from beautiful sunny Florida. Unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about something that's not so sunny. There's been another mass shooting, this time at a school in Canada, in British Columbia. I believe now the confirmed number dead is 10, 25 wounded. But within hours, if you can believe it, the story wasn't about the shooting anymore. The story wasn't about the victims. It was about what pronouns to use for the killer. I kid you not. The Canadian legacy media are so deranged in their ideological wokeness that they could make MSNBC look like Fox News. Okay, so if you don't know what happened, an 18-year-old biological male named Jesse Van Rootselaar walked into Tumbler Ridge Secondary School in British Columbia and opened fire, killing 8 and injuring 25. That shooter was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in a nearby residence alongside 2 additional victims. So we have 10 dead total. Now, needless to say, the shooter had a documented history of serious mental health issues. The shooter had been in psychiatric care. Where things get crazy here is that he identified as transgender and he showed up to the shooting scene wearing a dress. And that's where the legacy media just, I don't know how to put it, they basically lost its mind. When the Royal Canadian Mounted Police first addressed the public, they described the shooter, I kid you not, as this. Take a look.
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to the...
A gun person. That's right. You heard that right. Only from woke liberal cultures will you ever hear the term I'm sure you're all familiar with gunman, right? But not according to Canadian officials. No, now we have gun persons. And then we were told by officials that the suspect was a female wearing a dress. I'm going to move back up this way. Multiple major outlets, New York Times, Washington Post, Associated Press, they all ran with it, okay, calling Van Rootselaar a woman. What makes this bizarre is that Canadian police knew immediately that Jesse Van Rootselaar was biologically male. So that's the key. The police knew, and yet their initial statement about the gun person was factually incorrect. It was to use female pronouns and describe the suspect as a woman in a dress, language specifically chosen to obscure the shooter's biological sex. The next bizarre moment happened when the truth actually did start coming out, when we started learning that this was indeed yet another trans shooter. What this CBC reporter that I'm about to show you, this Canadian broadcasting reporter's take on this, it is utterly stupefying. Take a look.
Initially, when the active shooter alert went out, police said that they were looking for a female with brown hair wearing a dress, but we have not heard anything more from police about a possible suspect. Also, careful not to call the person a gunman, because we know that there was an active shooter alert, but police have not actually told us exactly how any of the people were killed or how any of them were injured. We don't know if any other weapons were involved.
And as I understand it right now, there's no confirmation that we will, in fact, hear from law enforcement officials today. So we are waiting to see whether or not that does happen and whether or not we get more details about all of this. But
so according to the CBC, don't you dare call Van Rootselaar a gunman. Don't you dare do that. We don't even know how those people died. How all 10 of those people, we have no idea. We don't know. You can't call them a gun. Whatever you do not call this person a gunman. And the Canadian media went on to basically have the same nonsensical virtue signaling fit that our legacy media always has in the midst of trans shooter horrors. Don't you dare. Don't even think about misgendering this gun person. Now I'm going to show you their exact playbook. I'm going to show you exactly why they collapse into these woke antics every single time. And this is going to make you very mad.
Emergency. Okay, he's going into a commercial here, so let me skip past that.
your savings. Click the covenants and make sure your family has real protection when it matters most. Now, of course, this is the same exact pattern that we saw, for example, with the Covenant school shooting in Nashville back in 2023, when Audrey Hale, a biological female who identified as male, killed 6 people, including 3 9-year-old children at a Christian school. The FBI fought, this was during the Biden era, the FBI fought for 2 years to suppress Hale's manifesto and writings, which we now know were clearly racial and religious in their motivation for murder. And the legacy media spent more time and energy debating Hale's pronouns than investigating the motive. In fact, it's worse than that. That's just where the insanity begins. If you recall, the legacy media actually tried to blame the Daily Wire, which is in Nashville, for the shootings. The transphobia, the supposed transphobia of the Daily Wire apparently drove Audrey Hale to kill those kids. That according to the legacy media. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And a lot of analysts miss this step in the repeatable pattern we see with every trans shooter, but it's the most important step of all. So step 1, initial reports by the media deliberately obscure the shooter's biological sex. Step 2, outlets that do report accurately are accused of transphobia. Step 3, the story quietly disappears from the news cycle faster than any other mass shooting. Step 4, anyone who asks a question about the connection between severe gender dysphoria or psychiatric instability and violence gets labeled a bigot, phobic, all that sort of stuff. What's missed here is how the trans community is immediately turned into the victim. They're the victim, while the real victims, the shooting victims, are completely discarded from the story, particularly if they are white and Christian, like we saw in Nashville. And what you see there with the media is an asymmetrical use of group identity in the framing of the story. So if the shooter is a white male, then it's all about blaming the group. It's white supremacy. That's the media weeps and gnashes their teeth for days, for weeks, hysterically obsessing over how systematically racist our nation is. Now we need to crack down on hate groups if the shooter is a white male. But if the shooter is a member of a protected left-wing identity group, like a trans shooter or a Muslim shooter, then you cannot blame the group. If you try to, you're an absolute bigot. You will be immediately pathologized. Don't you even ever think of blaming the group. How dare you? These are individuals. You can't blame a group for what individuals do. And then to close the loop, those individuals are just responding to the hate of the group the victims belong to. So the shooters and the groups they represent are the real victims. Again, you can't make this stuff up, but it's actually rather simple. The pattern exposes the fact that the legacy media does everything they possibly can to cover up far left murderous violence. The legacy media is dedicated to the radical ideology known as progressive realism. And progressive realists see the arc of history bending inevitably toward a far left vision of social justice. So left-wing groups are always, by definition, on the right side of history, while right-wing groups are always, by definition, on the wrong side of history. So when right-wing groups commit heinous crimes, well, that's just par for the course of being on the wrong side of history. But what happens when the far left commits heinous acts of violent murder? Well, that could have the effect of refuting progressive realism, couldn't it? Certainly for the vast majority of the population. So the legacy media does everything they can to bury it and distract you and lie to you. Now, unfortunately for them, both here and even increasingly in Canada, that's already happened. Progressive realism is dead. It lives only in the antics of progressives posing as press. In the meantime, the media will continue with their woke charades, while the rest of us gladly
tune them out. God bless.
All right, folks, there you have it. And that is why I share this information out, so you can hear the truth. Okay? Because the mainstream media in Canada, in Europe, are lying to us. Lying to you, lying to me, lying to all of us. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you this video does come from Dr. Steve Turley. I am following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and wrap this up with Wendy Bell Radio, Pallets of Ballots. Okay, well, let's check this out. Let me back this up just a hair here. Get this back to right after. There we go. The Pledge of Allegiance.
About the difference, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. You know, if you were tuning in earlier this week, Brock and I were having a conversation about the difference between men and women. And there are many, right? We can all agree on this. Here at the Wendy Bell Radio program, we can define the word. I can tell you we know what the word woman means. And he was like, you know what? Men are like dogs. And I was like, ooh, do tell more. And he said men live in the moment like dogs live in the moment. This is how people, friends, can get into a heated argument, throw punches at each other, right? Tussle for a while, and then go get a beer, right? Women can't do that. We're more brooding. We're more like cats, right? So anyway, I'm just going to say this. I do hold a bit of a grudge sometimes in my heart because I have a very difficult time letting things go. And it's complicated. I want to let it go. I don't want to drag things around with me, particularly when they annoy me. And I have a difficult time. I think Brock is on the ball about something here, okay? And that woman inside right now, me, is a little fussy and has been for about 48 hours. And I wanted to tell you this story. Now, it's not a big story. It's not super interesting, but it ticked me off. And it kind of opens the door to where I feel today about this program and about the news. So my son, Ryan, who is a sophomore at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, is training for the Knoxville Marathon. I think it's the Knoxville Marathon. It is a marathon. I'm presuming it's in his community. And I've never run in a marathon. I've run a part of the relay of the marathon and quickly determined I'll never, ever do that again. 26 miles, forget about it. He needs some new shoes, right? He's like, Mom, I need some new shoes. And so I'm going to get one over here. But I need kind of a run around town kind of pair, not one that I'm training in. Do you mind if I go to Dick's Sporting Goods with your credit card and get a pair of shoes? And I was like, no, that's fine. I think Dad has some bonus points or credits or whatever on his account. And if you log into his thing, you could probably access the QR codes and get a nice deal. So he has trouble doing that. He's like, Mom, do you know what the password is? I'm like, I don't, but let me hop in and let me see if I can figure it out. So I stop what I'm doing. I'm making dinner, right? I sit down at the computer. I'm trying to figure out Joe's password, trying to connect the dots. And I get to that point. I finally log into it. And I get one of those like CAPTCHAs, right? Where they're like, hey, are you really a person or are you a robot? Click here if you're not a robot. And so I click there and it loads and then bounces me back to click here if you're not a robot. So I'm like, okay, so I clicked there. I'm not a robot. It bounced back. Click here if you're not 4 times. And then Brock, you can see, beep, right? It's the water thing in my basement that is thousands and thousands of dollars. It's been replaced. Beep, 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 beep. I'm like, I'm going to choke somebody. Okay. So 4 times of this, I'm not a robot and it's not advancing. And then the site says, oops, we're sorry. We're having problems. We're under, some kind of a maintenance. Please check back with us. So anyway, I get back on my phone and I text Ryan back. I'm like, hey, Bob, I'm trying to get into Dad's account, but I can't get past the CAPTCHA verifying I'm a human being. Can't get by the robot. And, but when I do, I'll get back in touch with you. So my son, who I love dearly, right? He doesn't say, oh, thanks, Mom. I'll wait to hear from you and we'll figure it out. Just don't worry about it. Finish dinner. We'll talk later. No, he takes a screen grab of my text to him saying, dang it, I can't get by this CAPTCHA robot prompt. I can't verify that I'm not a robot. So the system's obviously having problems. He thinks this is hilarious and he takes a picture of it and sends it to his brother. So I guess the 5 boys are all on their own little group chat. There's one for the 7 of us, but then there's one for us to apparently mock Joe and me behind our backs. Just the 5 of them. And the next morning, I come downstairs on my way to work. My son Jack is home and he's chuckling on the couch looking at his phone. I'm like, what's so funny? He goes, can't get by the robot, huh? Pathetic. I swear to God, I almost jumped through the phone and strangled Ryan and threw him down the stairs. I'm like, really? You think it's funny that I had a hard time getting past this prompt? Do you have any idea what I'm doing, what I've done for you, you little jerk? I'm working so I can buy you the stuff, put you to college, pay for your apartment, all of your utilities, every whim you have, and you decide to make fun of me because I can't get by a prompt on a Dick's Sporting Goods site. I'm so angry, right? And then it dawns on me, this isn't that big of a deal, but it is, right? It is. In our family, I've spoken since the boys were little. You guys are in a herd. Your family is a herd, okay? We're along a bunch of other herds out there in this landscape of our community. But yours is singularly unique, and you protect it. You protect it. You keep secrets within the herd. If someone in our family is struggling, it's not fodder for social media. If something's going on, you're not putting out messages to your friends making fun of it or sharing things that really, quite frankly, are nobody's business. You need to protect the herd. So at some point today, as Ryan is traveling on his way to visit a friend, I'll be having this conversation with him, and he'll probably say, I don't know what the big deal is, Mom. This is what is going on, I believe, with our president, right? He's the head of a herd, and the herd should be the United States of America. Now, we've got it into different factions, but the way he sees it, he doesn't just represent you because you might be conservative. He doesn't just represent you if you're a white guy. He represents all of us, including the people who can't stand him. He is the leader of the herd. But there are factions within it, sadly, within the Republican Party that aren't getting in line and aren't marching that path with the rest of the animals. Think Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul oftentimes, Thomas Massie oftentimes, Tom Tillis, Mitch McConnell, John Thune, people who like to meander away and think that whatever their desires are is more important than the herd. Well, I've got news for you people out there. You were voted for by we the people. There are 535 of you representatives in Congress, Senate and the House, okay? There's 340 million of us. And so if I could just break through that barrier and connect with these people who are rogue, wandering off from the pack, knock it off. See, you work for us. And we got together after watching what happened during Barack Obama's 2 awful terms. We got to see all of the ridiculous woke mumbo jumbo invade our consciousness. We all went through 2020. We all went through COVID. We all saw what putting weekend at Joe Biden's in the White House did to this country. And we voted against that. If you are a Republican, you are part of that herd, and we expect you to do what we say. I'm not down with your rogue tendencies anymore. Hey, Nancy Mace, can I say something to you, young lady? I love your zeal. I love how much you want to represent victims. I love your heart and your story. But you went on television with Piers Morgan saying you saw Jeffrey Epstein's lists and the files and the names and the debauchery and the things that would blow people's minds. People on the right, people on the left, powerful people, little people. You would be shocked, she says, as she dropped none of the details. So kindly, to all of the Republicans who we reportedly elected to serve our interests, you know what? Stop the gums flapping. Start walking in line, because you are a part of a herd as long as we say you are. And you work for us. As for Ryan, I'll call you later, honey. When we come back on the Wendy Bell Radio program, Harry Enton, oh boy, he's talking about the Democratic Party. He's talking about these far left dive off of the progressive cliff of the Democrat Party. This is a huge wake-up call, America.
Yes.
Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, let's get that up there.
Wendy, so I decided to get this, but she's so. Welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio program. So I've been going back into the black hole where they've memory holed all of these hearings that were held right after the 2020 election in many states. They had them in Pennsylvania. They had them in Arizona. They had them in Nevada and Michigan and Wisconsin. And all sorts of people came out of the woodwork with instances of abnormalities and complete ridiculous fraud that they thought was worthy of review before the election was certified in January of 2021, right? And so we've gone through some of these audio clips, and I stumbled upon one in which there was this super close recount in Georgia in one of these wards where a Democrat socialist was, in Minneapolis, where a Democrat socialist was elected. Now, they went back and recounted again. The numbers never added up, but it was just by the skin of her chinny chin that this Democrat socialist managed to get a spot representing the 2nd Ward in Minneapolis on the city council. And I was like, Democrat socialist, like Zoran Mamdani. You guys, that's code for full out communist, okay? I don't believe in that baby step towards these people are communists. What they want to do is fundamentally change everything about what we know and love about how America works and functions as the greatest place on earth. So when I heard Harry Enton talking about this, and by the way, I think we can all have great questions about whether these people are actually winning, which is why we need voter ID, for heaven's sakes. Harry Enton had a very interesting blurb with one of the news babes at CNN yesterday. This polling about the percentage of Democrats who consider themselves very liberal, right? It used to be Democrat, now it's liberal. And he says, look, this number has quadrupled. The number of people who consider them Democrats consider themselves very liberal Democrats. It's quadrupled since 1999. Listen.
The results from that special election, that Democratic primary in the 11th district in New Jersey, speak to a larger point within the Democratic Party, and that is that the far left is significantly more powerful than they once were. This sort of gives the game away here. Democrats who identify as very liberal or conservative. You know, there used to be a lot of conservative Democrats, right? Back in 1999, 26% of Democrats self-identified as conservative. Just 5% said that they were very liberal. It was a smidgen. Now that far left has gained considerably in power. Look at this. Now we're talking about a fifth of Democrats. 21% say they're very liberal. That conservative part of the Democratic Party, adios amigos, goodbye, just 8%. And when you combine the 21% who are very liberal with those who say that they're somewhat liberal, we're talking about 3 in 5 Democrats who identify as either somewhat liberal or very liberal, with the very liberals, but much larger portion of the party. The far left, which used to just be a smidgen within the Democratic Party, has gained considerable power, as you saw in New Jersey's 11th district.
Now, I don't think that's good news for anybody. I don't think more liberals make anything ever any better, right? Look at the younger generation. Look at Generation Z. Look at how the young liberal woman, it has become just such a scourge. Talk about boys out there having a hard time meeting a woman, a young woman who's not a nutcase, because they either have been groomed, indoctrinated, what have you. They've got the chip activated. They're full-on clone trooper liberal wackos, period. And his polling suggests that's not just some outlier ideology. Audio soundbite number 2, he says, wait a minute. It actually gets worse, because the number of liberals who consider themselves socialist/communist, you might sit down for this one. Here we go.
Democrats who think of themselves as democratic socialists, among all Democrats, including those independents who lean towards the Democratic Party. Look at this. We're talking about a third of all Democrats who identify as democratic socialists. Bernie Sanders and Zohran Mamdani are not alone. They are a considerable part of the Democratic base at this point. And more than that, if you look at Democrats under the age of 35, they are nearly half of the Democratic Party. Look at this. 42% of Democrats think of themselves as democratic socialists under the age of 35, just like Zohran Mamdani. What happened in New York City, is not some aberration, right? It is not something that just happened in New York City. It is something that we are seeing grow within the Democratic Party at this particular point, when we're talking about 42% of Democrats under the age of 35 identifying as democratic socialists, and a third of all Democrats. My goodness gracious.
That should scare the ever-loving liver out of you, because it does me. These are the people who campaign on raising taxes and giving everybody everything for free, which never ends up that way. I mean, show me a socialist that's ever done anything successfully, please. Finally, Harry Enton says this. Can you put any lipstick on this pig, Harry? How do Democrats feel about this jump off of the socialist/communist cliff?
Okay, so we're talking about the Democratic base, right? But what about all Americans, right? How about all voters? Voters who say the Democrats are now too liberal. Look at this percentage. It was 42% in 96, 48% in 2013, now 58% in 2025 of all voters say that the Democratic Party is too liberal. The Democrats are moving to the left, the far left is gaining power, and there could be some electoral repercussions, because what we see right now is voters, the clear majority, say that they are too liberal.
100%. Look, if you are for full-term abortion, you're not just too liberal, you're dangerous. If you're for minor attracted persons and you try to normalize adults who have sexual thoughts about children, you're way, way off of a cliff, anywhere near where I want to be. That's these people, okay? When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, tuck that into your brain, because we're going to go back to the great state of Arizona. Truckloads and truckloads of ballots. I think it's time we revisit what really happened in 2020, friends. Buckle up. We're going there next.
All right. Well, if you want to see that, I'm going to have this video in my daily news wrap-up, so you can come back and watch that. But in the meantime, let's go ahead.
Huge wake-up call, America.
Let me click over here and show you that this, on the Rumble link, and show you this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. I'm following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, jumping back here. I have copied the live chat. We've got a few chats from M41 Coco, Foxy Grandma, so thank you very much for chatting. So I appreciate that. I've got this in a comment here. Let me go ahead and boom, make it a permanent part of this video. And let me remind you folks that these videos that I share with you come directly from the producer's channel. I've got the links to the videos here in the description box, as well as the link to the producer's channel. So that being said, I don't get any commissions or royalties for sharing this information out, but I do get the satisfaction of giving you the truth. No nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth. And hope that you share this out with others so they can hear the truth. All right. These videos that I do share with you are videos that I've posted here on Mertech.com, where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. And I have a link to Mertech.com in the description boxes also. So if you want to come here and see, some other information, that's fine. But I would like to share all of this stuff with you. Unfortunately, I just don't have the time to do that, and that's why I've put together my daily news wrap-up. And here's Wendy Bell Radio's video that we just finished up on. Dan Bongino's, I've got On the Fringe, Black Conservative Perspective, X22 Report, McWater's Effect. I've got some information here from Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, Dennis Michael Lynch, Benny Johnson, also Badlands Media, Barry Cunningham. Got all kinds of great information here, 19 videos, about 10 or 11 hours worth of information right here at your fingertips. But for as right now, go ahead and take a break, grab a donut and a cup of coffee, or a sandwich and a soft drink, or a nice glass of wine and some cheese, and meet me back here by 9:30 and we'll get this going. But as for right now, I do want to thank you for being here with me. Hopefully, I will get to see you again later, and may God bless.